I tried therapy and it didn't work, but you know what did? Tarot. Hi, and welcome to a new episode of Tarot by the Hour. I'm Lady Knight of Avalon. You can call me Maria. And today's topic is going to be tarot therapy. And where better to talk about this than on my couch, because the renovations are still not finished. But that is a different story. So I see I'm on YouTube. So everything is live. Today's setup is also a little bit different because my webcam is standing in front of me, my computer is to the side, and my notes are also on the screen behind the camera. So yeah, it is what it is today. And hopefully that room will soon be finished and then everything will be back to normal. Anyway, tarot therapy is what I wanted to talk about today. And disclaimer, before getting into any topic, if you have anything in your life where you need professional help, please seek out a therapist, a doctor, a professional to help you with this. I'm talking about my personal experience today and what worked and what didn't work and why. And maybe my approach can also be beneficial to other people. It doesn't have to be. This is simply my story. Okay, so maybe I should give a little bit of backstory to where this is all coming from. The first time, or I should say the only time so far that I've tried therapy, going to a professional therapist, was during my first, or like right after my first Saturn return, so around 29, 30. And for me, that was a time when I was searching for answers. I didn't know where to find them. And my doctor suggested that I go and see a therapist. I did that. And the therapist made me fill out a 4-page questionnaire, front and back. I did that and handed it back to her. And then I thought that that would be her starting point. And for me, the only thing I ever knew about therapy is what I saw on television, in movies or TV shows, mainly from America. And I thought that therapy would be just like that. You know, you go there, you sit down, the therapist starts asking you a bunch of questions, you answer, and then by the end of the hour, you will get some kind of advice and, you know, some kind of homework. And, you know, next time you go back and you talk about if something has improved, what's different, whatever, like that kind of stuff. But that was not my experience, because apparently that's not how therapy works. At least not over here. I don't know where it is in other places of the world, but here, that's not how they do it. So when I came to my first session, my therapist, she just sat on the other side of the room in her chair. I sat in my chair, and then she said, I can just talk about whatever I want. Like, she was just actually just sitting there, and I was waiting for her to ask me something, and nothing came. And then I was like, are you going to ask me a question? She was like, no, you can talk about whatever you want. And I said, well, I don't know what to talk about because there are so many things. And at the same time, I don't know where to start. And she was like, well, whatever you want, or we can just sit here the entire hour. And I think that went on for like 4 sessions. And then she decided that this is not helpful because I didn't know what to do. She didn't even give me any guidelines. So the least that I would have needed is for her to say, okay, the way that we're going to do this is I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to take notes. You just tell me everything that comes to mind. Tell me your story. And then when I know enough and I can make an assessment, then I will join the conversation and we can work on things. That would have given me a framework. That would have given me some direction and managed my expectations. None of that happened. She was just sitting there looking at me and made me feel completely stupid. So while going to therapy and sitting there with her, I felt embarrassed. I felt judged. And even when I was having an emotional moment, this one time, she was just looking at me and her face was stone cold. There was nothing there. Now I know that they're not, friends that are going to react like, oh, are you okay? Here's a tissue. No, like they don't do that. But still, I felt so vulnerable and I don't know, like naked in that moment. It's kind of like that dream that people talk about when you dream about standing in front of the classroom naked. That's kind of what I felt in that moment. And of course, now my cat joins in. I just fed her 5 minutes before going online. And yeah, so in that moment, that didn't help me at all. And then after 4 sessions, she said that, well, I don't think this is really helpful. So I think this is where we part ways. And I didn't get any kind of help. Now, another thing that happened to me is I was dealing with the result of a trauma that happened to me as a result of an accident when I was 6 years old. And for the longest time, like during my teenage time, I didn't even remember that happened because why would I think about that? And then when I came towards adulthood, suddenly the aftermath of that, sorry if I'm screaming, my cat is just really loud. The aftermath of that started to affect my life. And I went over the course of a few years to different doctors to find answers, 3 different doctors to be precise, and none of them gave me any answers. None of them even took the time to explain to me what was going on. And the worst part was the first doctor that I went to, and if I could go back in time, I would tell my younger self to report this woman to the medical board or whatever, because she told me, that was her advice, I should just suck it up. I shouldn't be such a baby, more or less. And her exact words afterwards were, I should just drink some wine and, get it over with. She actually suggested that I simply drink some alcohol and just stop whining about it. And the next 2 doctors that I went to didn't even acknowledge what I told them when I specifically asked for help, and they completely ignored it and my discomfort and all that kind of stuff. And it was only through the help of the internet, and more specifically YouTube, that I, then at the age of 39, found the answer. So it was 33 years of nothing. And then I finally found the answer. And when I did, I found testimonials from other people that had been going through similar experiences. And that was so helpful because suddenly I knew that I wasn't alone anymore, because other, specifically women, had experienced that too. And it turns out that this is something that millions of women actually deal with. I'm not going to get too specific. That is a topic for some time later. But yeah, I was left alone by the people that were supposed to help me, who swore an oath to help the patients, and they didn't. And so my only other option for me personally, as someone who is living a spiritual life, and tarot and astrology is a big part of that, that's where I turned for help. So I did tarot and lots of shadow work to try to find out what's wrong. I also watched lots and lots of videos on psychology to kind of get an idea of where to start. Because when you're doing all of this by yourself, unlike a professional who can map out a way of, this is what we're going to do first, and then this, and then this, when you're left to your own devices, you don't really know where to start, because everything is it feels overwhelming, and it's like you're kind of like finding your way in the dark. You don't even have a flashlight, and you're hoping at some point that you're going to find the light switch and everything makes sense. That's kind of how it felt. And for me, first of all, being able to identify the problem, that was a huge help. That should have come from the doctors, but it didn't. But as soon as I knew, I was able to find books about the topic, and I realized that this is not just an issue that was in my body, that it was mostly in my mind. This was a mental blockage that was the result of an accident. So my body was traumatized, and I had to find a way out of that. And the only way that I knew how to do that was with shadow work. What helped me was, for example, so I've got some stuff here. So one of the things that I used was this book, and I'm still using it, Tarot and the Gates of Light. And what I started doing was, this book comes with a lot of questions. This is the 49-day mystical practice known as counting the Omer, from an ancient Jewish ritual observed between the holidays of Passover and Shavuot. Not sure if I say that right. Also known as Pentecost. And they took that as the basis for this book, and it is designed in a way that you go through it over the course of 49 days. So you have every day mapped out in here, and it gives you the corresponding tarot cards, because this is working through the tree. Well, the first, starting at the bottom, 7 Sefirot, not the top 3. And then you get the cards, and you get a lot of explanation with each card. And at the end of each day, you get, I don't know if it will show up here, questions for reflection and contemplation. And they also tell you what suit matches the question, but I completely ignored the suit suggestion. So what I did is I took an extra journal and I wrote down every single question. And I also put my tree in here, and this is the tree that I'm working with. So you may notice that the 2 paths down here are missing because they're up here. This is the Lorianic tree, the Holy Ari version. And then what I did, I'm going to show this from far away because I hope you can't read it. So the black stuff is all the questions, the red stuff is all the answers. And that's how I did. So I wrote it down very briefly to simply remember what my answer was. But I can read you some of the questions, and maybe then it will make sense why I use this for my self-discovery. So, for example, contemplation questions were, and by the way, the deck that I used with that is the Tarot of Vampires, and I pulled 1 card specifically, just 1 card for each question. And questions are something like, how open are you to receive love? What side of your tent is closed? So that makes sense with the cards that were being talked about. Where are you reflexively unwelcoming to others, and why? In what ways do you distract yourself from the flow of blessings? So these might seem like questions that don't really pertain to my specific thing. But for me, what was helpful is to have some kind of starting point, because what tarot for me does is it will jumpstart a memory or an idea or something, and that will then take me down the spiral of finding out more, remembering more. And so having these things as the starting point was really helpful for me. Or something like, in what way are you rigid in expressing or expecting to receive love? Or how can you show compassion for yourself when you need to withdraw or look within? So these are kinds of questions that I would answer. And at first, I was actually trying to do this every single day, but that gets exhausting. So one thing that I've also learned on this journey of self-discovery and healing is that I need to know when to pump the brakes. And oh, hey, Deanne is here. Hi. Thanks for being here. I gotta remember my camera is here. And only do as much as I can when I feel like it, because self-discovery, as interesting as it is, and once you start uncovering things, you want to know more, but it really is physically and mentally exhausting to do so much in a short time span. So for me, I had to learn, okay, it's okay to take a break. I don't have to uncover everything right now, even though there was an element of impatience, because after searching for answers for so long, like for basically 20 years, I've been looking for answers and help, and I couldn't find it. And then, of course, there was a certain sense of urgency within me. But I had to learn, okay, it doesn't work that way. I can't fit 20 years of being in the dark into one day of switching on the light. It doesn't work like that. And so I had to learn to work with my body, with my mind, with, knowing when, okay, enough is enough. Let it rest, even let it rest for a few days, or maybe even a couple weeks, not getting into that. And one thing that is also very important is, once you uncover something, to give myself the time to also reflect, not just, okay, I got the answer, I'm going to write it down, next question. No, I actually need the time to process, reflect, go over things again, revisit the memory or whatever triggered it, and then take my time to work through that before then jumping into the next topic. And Care Bear, hi. Yeah, so important to check in with ourselves and do what we can when we can. Exactly. Everything in its own time. This really is a marathon and not a sprint, and it's perfectly fine to take rest days. And for everyone, the whole healing journey is different. Part of my healing journey is also to just take a day on the couch and binge watch some shows or music videos or whatever. And for me, for example, in December, I had a really bad episode where, like, for 2 weeks, I barely could get out of bed. I just didn't have it in me, and I needed the time. And what helped me to get some kind of, wanting to even be creative again, because that is also something that suffered over all those years in my job in marketing and video production. I have to be creative. And at some point, oh, there she is, Artemis. At some point, that creativity was just gone, and I was really grasping for straws to make something happen. Your environment is very peaceful. Well, it is now. It is now. I had to get the abuse out of here. That was, another part of it, the 12 years domestic abuse situation. But that's all gone, and everything is on the up and up now. But yeah, in December, so something that I discovered was K-pop. I mean, I know it's been around forever, but specifically one band called Stray Kids, their music videos, wow. And I also happen to like their music. And then I watched a professional video editor comment on those videos and pause and say, okay, they use this filter and they use this special effect, and this is how they edited it. And that was, just watching that really got me in the mood for wanting to be creative again myself. So it was listening to other people doing that kind of stuff and get really excited about their own work, which is similar to my work. And yeah, that also was part of my therapy, so to speak, part of my healing. Yeah, thank you. It was a bit, but that is over with and I can smile again. But yeah, so there was a lot that went into that. And something else that I found at the Dollar General last summer that is something that I find helpful because I also started journaling here and there. Not every day. That's also another thing. Sometimes I have phases where I can journal every day for pages and pages. And a lot of times when I journal, I'm in a very emotional state. Sometimes I will throw myself a pity party in my journal because I do have those moments when it's like, why me? Why is this happening to me? But that's the thing that I need to get over because that's the wrong question. It's what do I do with this now? Where do I go from here? But sometimes it just helps to get it out and I just put it on a piece of paper in my notebook. I close that book, put it away, and then I start working on stuff. But sometimes I just have to sit there and cry. And I've also had tarot readings that made me cry. I've had watching movies that made me cry and later on helped me realize certain things. So thank you. I started walking haikus lately. It's my journaling form as of now. That is good. Out in nature, I should do that more. I always say that, but I don't. But yeah, I should definitely get some more fresh air and vitamin D. I should. So back to this. One of the things that I found at the Dollar General is this book, Maria Shriver. And for those who don't know, she is the ex-wife of Arnold Schwarzenegger. And she wrote this about intentions, prayers, and reflections for your meaningful life. So basically something for mindfulness. And what it is, she has this divided up for an entire year. So there's like a prompt for each week. And they all pretty much follow the same system. So, for example, this is what this looks like. There is, the topic. Then there's always a quote, either by her or someone else, a quick introduction. And then there's lots of space to write. And then on the next page, she gives a prayer, dear God, and then whatever it is about. Then there is a midweek reflection where during the middle of the week, you check in with yourself. And at the end of the week, you have your yippee moment. And something like this in here is the power of fear. And this is her quote. And she says, if you want to be brave, then you have to walk into your fear. And then it says, we all have fear. I know I do. Fear can be a motivator for some, but it's also really paralyzing for a lot of people. This week, write about your fears. What are you afraid of? How might you do more to push through your fears? And sometimes I take these things to pull a card, or if I don't know what to journal about and I really feel the urge to write something, I can take something like this as, a starting point. I don't write in this book because then once I've written in here, then it's always that answer. So if I do something, I always write in separate notebooks. But yeah, I thought for $3, you can't really go wrong with it. So I just picked this up and took this home with me. I wrote 10 in an hour and was like, I'm onto something. 10 what? 10 pages? Yeah, this really is a nice book. Yeah, sometimes it just pours out of you. Like when you're in a mood, sometimes I wish I could write as fast as I think. And so actually doing something like this, talking, is easier for me than writing it down because there's so much to write and I'm always worried. And this is just me getting into my Gemini mind. I'm worried, like, if I write too slow, will I forget all the thoughts that I have that I wanted to write down? I need to get out of my own head. Gemini. Okay. So another deck that I got, some of the decks here that I used for this one specific topic. I used very specific themed decks, but like I said, that's for another time. I'm actually working on a tarot workbook project with that stuff. And once that's all ready, I will talk about it. So another deck that I found helpful for uncovering stuff, it's called the Arcania Tarot. This was a Kickstarter deck, an indie deck I got from the website. And this is also a kind of dark deck as far as the artwork goes. It was also printed a little bit too dark. But yeah, these images here, I can maybe, this is in here a little bit weird. So these images, they show up way better on camera than they are in real life. I work a lot with these pictures, especially like for some reason this also works a lot with like inner child work and going back to past memories and things like that. That's not what I expected this deck to do, but it does. So that's kind of what I use it for. And a lot of the things, what I've discovered on this journey is that everything goes back to our childhood. Every single thing that shaped us, that, you know, is our behavior now and how we think, how we act, all the trauma, most of the trauma, not all of it, most of the trauma goes back to the childhood. And so having a deck that kind of takes me back into that and kind of starts the process of remembering things and maybe even trigger some stuff. Yeah, that's too. Well, I'm a Gemini in real sky. In Western, I used to be a Cancer, which kind of explains that whole emotional side and why I love Hallmark movies so much and lived my life vicariously through them. Oh, 10 haikus. Okay. So where was I? That's another thing. Brain fog is a real thing as a result of trauma. So if I think it and I don't write it down or I don't say it right away, it's gone. Poof, gone. I like to use my Teal Swan Blind Spot Oracle for my shadow work. It triggers me. It does the job well. Some triggers are good. That's another thing that I learned from watching lots of psychology videos and, you know, getting into this stuff, that you also have to know when to stop with all of this, because some triggers, they can actually re-traumatize you. So it always depends on the level of traumatic experience that you're trying to work through. In my case, thankfully, the trauma was not as bad as other people experience in their life. So like compared to with other people that have like major PTSD or something, I'm able to manage my traumas, childhood traumas, that trauma from the accident, and even the domestic abuse and all that. I'm able to manage that. And if I go into those dark places again to work through them, I'm able to do that. Like there's nothing for me to really fear too much of it, especially that I now have created a safe space for me. Before that, when this domestic abuse was still happening, of course, there was no safety for me because I couldn't escape it. If you have it in the same home as you, there is no escape. But now that that's gone, I have a safe space. So I know that there's nothing to fear for me. Of course, every once in a while, there will be some bad dreams or something. But that's the most important thing that I've also learned in this, on this journey, that I am safe. And if it gets to a point where I know I need to stop, I've also picked up this technique of not just breathing, but also activating your senses by naming things that you can see, naming things you can smell, or what you can taste, or what you can touch, where you are right now, to bring yourself back into the present, into the here and now, so that you don't get lost in your thoughts, because that can happen. Okay. Um, Another deck. So some of the decks that I've used were a little bit confrontational, but I also have the one deck that when I want to do some tarot reading, and I do have cat hair on my face, I'm sorry. And I do need um, a little bit more soft-spoken advice. I turn to this one, and I specifically got the one that's just from Radley Valentine and not from She Who Shall Not Be Named. So yeah, this deck, every single card in here, even the Three of Swords, Ten of Swords, Tower, have a positive spin to it. And this cat hair is driving me crazy. And so this is also like, there's no right or wrong way to do something. There's also no shame in using something soft spoken and something pastel and plushy and all that stuff. Whatever works for you in that moment, because this entire healing thing is mostly, it happens in your feelings and it is triggered by your mind, but for the most part you will feel it. You will sense fear, you will sense anxiety and all of these things when you go through it. And it is perfectly fine to do whatever it takes to make sure that you feel safe, that you feel comfortable. And if that means using the fluffiest deck that you have, then that's exactly what you can do. Oh my God, this hair. It is driving me nuts. So, and Amy is here. Hi, thanks for being here. Yeah, She Who Shall Not Be Named. Because I do believe a name carries power, which is why I also never name the name of my previous abuser. I always just say the troll. Yeah. So fluff is perfectly fine and it does the trick. But if I want to also do a little bit more investigation work for myself, I use my Fallen Angels Oracle, working with the 72 fallen angels of the Goetia. And oops, this guidebook in here, there's not a lot of text in here, but I have gotten some good readings even from just a little bit of text. And doing the spread that's in here, the what is it called, the Thing of Solomon. What is it called? Where is it? Is it the Star of Solomon? Please hold the line. Solomon's Seal. That's the one. So I've used that to really get into some, finding some answers for myself. And this one gets straight to the point. There's no fluff about it, no excuses. This one tells you directly where you're at. And there are days when I appreciate that, because my impatience forbids me from, taking any shortcuts. Taking the long scenic route. I just want to get to the point and I need the answer now. I have those days. And then there are days when I'm like dancing around the problem, like, yeah, maybe not. I don't know. But it's like, this is not a straight line that you go on, that you walk on. This is like all over the place and back and forth and up and down, and it's messy. And shadow work is chaotic, and it can be fun, it can be daunting, it can be all of these things. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It is a personal experience, and whatever you experience is what it is. You know, there's no one can tell you, oh, you're doing it wrong. No, screw that. You're welcome. And now I'm blurry. Hello, I'm here. Thanks. This camera. Okay, another deck that I use, I'm not gonna take it out now, but this is my haunted house, my trusted deck that I also start writing on, because as part of this whole like brain fog, forgetting stuff thing, like for me, in order to work with tarot a little bit more, start writing on my cards. Also, one reason is not to forget, because whenever I hear something interesting about a card, if I don't write it down, I will forget it. And that's how this even started, of writing on the deck to work with it, not just the meanings from the guidebook, but I do watch other people's readings. And then when they say something interesting about a card that I haven't even thought of or that I never read anywhere, I will just write it down quickly. And yeah, the brain fog and forgetting stuff, oh my God, that is something I hope I can get back to a functioning memory system up there. I don't know if that's possible, but that is something that the trauma has taken from me, and I dislike that very much, because I used to be very good at remembering things, and specifically back in school, if I didn't understand something, I at least remembered it. So when I would write any tests or exams, a lot of times I would just remember what's written in my folder, and then I would just write those answers down. After the test, I would forget it, but at least my memory worked in that way. Now, I don't even know if I could do that anymore. I can still like scan the page with my eyes and kind of have like an image in my head that I can kind of read from, but not to the extent that I used to be able to do that. The Haunted Tarot Scrolls. What do you mean by that? Um, One deck that actually made me cry is a deck that I didn't expect that from, and that is the Undersea Tarot. So this is a mermaid deck. So there's nothing controversial or triggering or anything about it. And I decided to get this mermaid deck because in the other mermaid tarot that's out there, seeing the animals hurt, like in the Three of Swords, or even in the, what was it, the Tower with the oil spill and the animals not being able to come up and so, that was too much for me. I couldn't handle that. But this deck, like these cards here, there's like nothing bad about them, nothing too triggering. It's just a bunch of shells and sea stars and, you know, mermaids swimming around and all that stuff. Like there's nothing bad. And I did a Celtic Cross reading with this deck for myself. And by the time I got to card number 7, I was already crying. By the time I got to card number 10, I couldn't see out of my eyes anymore, because something was getting to me with what this was. And what I asked the deck is, tell me something about myself. So that was actually, I think, the first reading that I did with this deck. And instead of doing the deck interview, I do the tell me something about myself. I put down the Celtic Cross, and I want to know if I can work with this deck, if the deck gets me. And this one, did it get me? Oh my God. So I was crying. And so this is one of my decks. Like if I really want to dive into those emotions, and if I'm ready to have a good cry and all that stuff, because sometimes crying and just letting it all out feels really cathartic, that's the deck that I would turn to. Okay, where was I in the chat here? Oh, how I've written on the deck, yeah. And I will continue to do so. There's still lots of room. And yeah, whenever I hear something good, I just want to write it down. My environment challenged my memory. Yeah. It's like living with squirrels sometimes. Mm. Yeah. Feels like I don't have my own brain most days. Hi, Heather. Thanks for being here. Yeah, that's Artemis. She's the one I have left. Her brother sadly passed away. I actually have a picture of him. Wait, I can get it. That was her twin brother. They were both from the same litter. This was Bellamy. And yeah, I sadly had to let him go in, when was it? June? May? June? I think it was June. May or June. Yeah. Like he had been sick for a while, and after a year of lots of visits to the doctor, she couldn't help him anymore. So, yeah. And she just celebrated her 11th birthday. And now she's sleeping there. She looks so peaceful, but she can also be very loud. But she's gotten a lot more cuddly ever since it's been just her and me. So, yeah. I have 2 black kitties. My Ziva hasn't been feeling good. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, definitely. She looks like Mozzie. Yeah. She has like a little white spot on her, like around her belly button, so to speak. And that's about it. Because, yeah, originally she was advertised to me as a boy. And then shortly before, because I was looking for a black boy cat when I got her. And a couple weeks before pickup, I was informed, oh, it's a girl. Do you still want her? And then I was shown her brother, who was the only boy in the 6 litter kitty pile there. And I really wanted to have a boy. And so I just ended up taking both. And that was a good decision. He was so snuggly. And yes, I miss him. He was also part of my healing because he was always there for me. Yeah, much love. Cotton balls, yeah. Yeah. Life can happen without cats, but it's useless, you know. So those are some of the decks that I work. Oh, I forgot one. There's another deck because in this whole process of going through the motions and everything, it also affected my spirituality in a sense that, you know, so much fear, anxiety, depression, all that stuff was messing with my spidey senses, with my intuition, and all of that, which I didn't like at all. So, one of the decks that helped me is one that I was gifted by Carla. And this one is Twin Flame Ascension or something. It's a square deck, and it has these like kaleidoscope kind of looking images in a way. I don't work with the keywords or the numbers or anything on there. I don't work with the guidebook. This is a deck where I really just look at the pictures and let those pictures take me somewhere else. This is a deck that I specifically use to get back to my intuition, to train my intuition, to see what comes up, because like, yeah, some of these are like very much symmetrical, some are not, some are like, let me see if I can find what I mean by kaleidoscope. I found one earlier, or something like this. You know, it looks like a pretty thing, but sometimes focusing on one specific detail that catches your eye Um, that will help you. Oh, here's something that kind of reminds me of a kaleidoscope thing. Or I also got this one in a reading for myself, drop the mask. Like, I don't care that it says you can do it, but like the whole mask thing, like, drop the mask. Be yourself. What's behind the mask? Why am I even wearing a mask? Why do I feel a necessity to wear a mask? So there's also a bunch of questions that come up when looking at these cards, and I've I've gotten some good questions from this deck. Not so much answers, but questions. So that's why this deck is very interesting for me. My Julie cat looked like she had a mustache. I've seen some of those. Yeah, they look cute. I would call her Mustachio. Aww. I practiced in a remote viewing practice last night and discovered I felt the pictures. 10 of Wands was one of the images. I felt like my wrists and arms were heavy, wild. Wow, that is crazy. Yeah, so these are some of the decks that I've worked with, among with the special themed decks. And for me, this has been way better than any of my real life therapy experiences, or like the doctors that didn't help me and told me to suck it up or just drink alcohol. And yeah, like I still can't believe that happened. But I mean, with all of this, of course, there's pros and cons with everything. And like I said, this is purely my experience, what I did. And so if people need help, I always encourage them to go and find a specialist. And maybe if I would have searched around more, I could have found a doctor that would have helped me. Maybe, maybe not. I will never know. And so for me, tarot was basically what saved me. As weird as that sounds, but it gave me a starting point. It gave me safety. It gave me comfort. And it helped me remember things from the past. It helped me focus because, like, in that situation, sitting in that therapist's office and wanting me to just talk about whatever, there's so much in my head. After so many years of life, how am I supposed to know where to start? And by pulling one tarot card, it kind of takes off the pressure of finding the answer in there all by myself. And with one tarot card, I can zoom in on something. And that, for me, feels like, oh yeah, someone is helping me find the answer. It feels like I'm being guided. And instead of just being left to my own devices and having to find the answer by myself, which I can't do. I can't do that because obviously if I was able to do that, I wouldn't have gone to seek out help in the first place. Why would she think that I could do that by myself? But with a tarot card and with specific prompts to journal about, with specific questions, because that's also like I worked in journalism, so I'm very used to this idea of like an interview, question, answer, back and forth. And suddenly having to give an entire monologue about my life feels unnatural. It's just not me. It's not how I work. It's not how my brain is wired. I need the back and forth. And so the tarot prompts, the questions, the journaling questions, everything, that was the questions. And I was then answering them, which made me feel right at home in my element, because that's what I know. And that's how I would have wanted the therapist to work with me. And I know that they have their own ways of doing things, but I wish that they would also take into consideration how someone is wired and what works for them. Same way, like in school, when, an entire class of 30 people was supposed to learn the same thing in the same kind of way, but every kid is different. Some people are more visual learners. Some you just have to tell them something and they memorize it. Some have to read it a couple times and then they know. Some need, practical imagination of how something works. I, for example, if you tell me something that's just theoretical, which is why I never understood physics or chemistry, if I have no way of doing it myself, I will never know how it functions. I need to have the muscle memory to remember something. And I think that would be very helpful for therapy as well. If the therapy is also tailored to the person and not just, okay, this is how I do it, and you either get with it or you get lost. That didn't really help me. Yeah, finding the right counselor is key. That is so important. And yeah. I've had the same counselor for 7 years. She's been there to help me so much. So blessed. Yeah, if you have a good one, that really is a blessing. And in my case, it didn't work. And yeah, I got discouraged by it. And not everyone has the strength or the willpower to keep looking. Yeah. Okay, where was I? And Carla is here. Hi, thanks for being here. If y'all want to, Max Vision remote viewing class is every Friday, Saturday, 11 p.m. Central, which is midnight my time. Was totally worth it. Just pops up live, just set notifications. Oh, I'm guessing this is a YouTube channel and he does that. That's interesting. Remote viewing. I don't know if I've ever tried that. Maybe. Yeah, the what was it called? The twin flame deck that I got from you. The energy there is really positive on the channel. Okay, I'll have to check that out. You were pushed to find tarot instead, and that was the key. Yeah, tarot is what I decided to go with, and it really helped me. Now, of course, I want to end this by saying there are pros and cons. And of course, I made a list. So the pros of using tarot for therapy, or more like self-discovery. I don't even know if therapy is the right word, since that is like a medically licensed kind of thing. So I guess for me, it's more self-discovery, self-empowerment kind of thing. So for me, the pro was it helped me to remember things. It triggered certain memories, certain things that I had forgotten. Because when you are in this kind of situation, your body, your brain will do something besides just the fight or flight thing. You will go into survival mode. And something that happened with me in those 12 years of domestic abuse is my brain started to erase, not erase, it's still there, but to put it into a shelf in a back room down in the basement that I would never access again, locked it away, threw away the key. All those good memories that I had with that person, so that at the end of it, only the bad memories were left. And this was my body, my brain, helping me to get out of the situation and to stop making excuses and be like one of those people that's like, oh, it's not that bad. Like there's good moments too. No, my brain stopped me from thinking that way by erasing all of those. So I was only left with the bad moments. And at some point that started to pile up so much. And when, in typical gaslighting fashion, that person tried to talk to me and tried to reel me back in, like, oh, do you remember this and that? And I was just like, no, I don't remember any of that. And then he was like, how could you have forgotten that? I remember everything. So good for you. I don't. And I don't want to remember it. Get out. So yeah, this is something that your body will start protecting you in some way. And for me, working with tarot, it made me access certain things that I had long forgotten. And knowing myself after a long time of life experience also helped me to know how far I can go in order to not re-traumatize myself. But yeah, for me, it was good to open some file cabinets, and tarot was the key for that, because we do suppress emotions and thoughts and experiences and all of that. So, and also it gave me some kind of a structure by having books like this, for example, not knowing where to start because it's overwhelming, and I can research as many tarot spreads as I want, but at least something like this, even if the questions are seemingly out of order, but at least it gave me a somewhat structured starting point. And from there, like from one, you get to the next, and then you have other ideas. And so tarot, or some of these books, helped me find a structure in all of this to build my own system to work within. Tarot also helps me to find different perspectives, because when you do this by yourself and you don't have that third person, that outsider, that therapist who can be objective, everything that we talk about with ourselves, everything we write down is all from our own perspective. It's all subjective, and there's no way of having the outside perspective of our own lives. It's just not possible, because our experiences are how we remember them. And even if our brain has a way of maybe sometimes even tricking us in our own memories and switching them to a more favorable kind of thing, also survival mode, there's no way to really get those memories back to what they originally were. But at least you can get a new perspective, and the tarot cards act as that third person in a way, by reminding you of certain things and asking you the tough questions, or showing you something that, I mean, the only way that this works is if you're brutally honest with yourself. That's the only way that this is going to work. And in doing this by myself, at my own pace, in my safe space, I allowed myself to be completely honest and to really look at some of the parts that I didn't want to see. But it helped. And so that's where, of course, a therapist can be much better in guiding you through that and holding you accountable. But for me, tarot also worked in holding myself accountable. Like, for example, the guidebook to this deck, that was also really good in finding that, like, these points of accountability for me. And I decided I do not want to escape that. I don't want to sugarcoat anything. I don't want to come out of this all unicorns and rainbows. If there are any ugly truths, I want to know them. And that's a decision that I had to make before going into this. So yeah, and like I said, for me, tarot offered me a safe way of doing this. I also do this whenever I want, how I want, so there's no one telling me this is right or wrong. It's accessible at any time. It's accessible anywhere, so I can take it with me. I don't just, have to go to someone's office. I can have that deck of cards in my purse and carry it with me, and then whenever I feel like it, when I have a moment to myself, I could do it, even at the office, at the park, wherever. So that offers me a little bit more freedom in this whole process. One thing that this also does, especially with the journaling, it encourages more introspection. And yeah, sometimes even though when I'm throwing myself a pity party on those journaling pages, and later I read through it and I'm like, oh, girl, get a grip. And when I realize that I'm saying that to myself, I notice, okay, I've moved up a step. I did something happened here, because I don't feel like that victim anymore. And yeah, so like, I can also keep track of my own progress with all of that. And it's good to write these things down, to write down what cards I pulled and what I associate with them, because brain fog, I will forget all of those. And yeah, so this is basically one big journey of self-empowerment with the tarot cards, because that power that I felt was taken from me or not given to me by the doctors, I took that power with tarot. And I was completely unapologetic about it. And if someone else going to therapy told me like, yeah, you can't just do that with tarot, you need to go and see a real specialist, I'm like, says who? I tried that. Didn't work. I found something that works for me, so just let me do my thing. So yeah. And also like something that for me was also helpful is I can decide how gentle or tough love kind of thing I want to do this. And this is something that I've also been working on in this whole shadow work thing. I did just finish one of my projects where I actually created my first tarot deck, which is about tough love. And it's like a lot of prompts on those cards. And they sound very mean, but I had so much fun writing them. And I was giggling the whole time. And I will soon present that. And yeah, so with this, like I said, like I can choose an angel deck and have it really fluffy. I can choose the vampires deck and go dark deep and, you know, like down the rabbit hole into the basement. And I can choose my own approach with all of this. And no one is going to tell me, no, today we're going to do this. Like, no, I want to do that. So let's look at the chat really quick. What did I miss? Yeah, a YouTube channel. Yeah, self-healing. That is a very important thing. And our body has all the necessary things inside of it, like our brain and everything. We just need to find a tool to access those things. And tarot can be a tool. So many powerful conversations. I have enjoyed this. Have a wonderful day. Okay. Thanks for being here. Yeah. And let's see, what else do I have on my list? Yeah, tarot is also something really good for artistic people because, like I said, I'm a very visual person. I need to see something in order to understand it. You can't just tell me about it. I have to like visually get an image of it. More ideally 3D, but yeah, with images, I can work with that. They spark something in me, which is why this kaleidoscope kind of deck was so helpful in getting back into like intuitive thinking and also feeling. And yeah, like I would argue that a lot of the people using tarot are creative people as well. And so for us to simply go to a place where we only talk about our feelings, I think that only gets us so far. At some point, you got to get something creative in there. And for me, tarot has always been something extremely creative, especially when you look at all the different decks and the different art styles and everything. And you can find something everywhere. Even going to a museum and looking at pictures of the Renaissance, for example. You can even find stuff in there, like we do bibliomancy. You can also do, what is it called when you look at a museum, like all these pictures, like you can find signs and everything everywhere. And the visual aspect, the creative aspect, or listening to music. I always find it very interesting that when I'm doing a reading and suddenly a certain song pops into my head or a certain movie, and then there is a lesson in there and I use that. So if I'm doing a reading for someone else, I will name the song, I will name the movie or a specific character in the movie. Like I remember in one reading that I did, I think it was in one of the live readings, suddenly from Tu Wong Fu, Miss Vida Boheme came into my mind. And, you know, there was something about her and the way that she did things that fit that situation that I was reading about perfectly. So yeah, like Vida Boheme was suddenly saying, hey, be like me. So I use that, like the whole creativity and everything that it sparks. I absolutely love that about tarot and what it can offer. So, of course, there's also some don'ts, not just some do's. So, like I mentioned before, being completely objective and unbiased is not possible. But if you allow the card to speak for itself and to not try to spin it in a way that makes you look good, um, if you're really open to the naked truth as much as possible in a reading where you and your cards, then you can find a lot more in this. But like I said, we have this potential to, wanting to make things be better than they are. It's just our nature. And yeah, so the whole bias and being objective, it's a fine line that sometimes we hit it, sometimes we miss it. So with that, not having a third person there is a lack of external perspective, which is when, if you don't have a good therapist, maybe you have a good friend that you can talk to and run those ideas by, and maybe they can offer a bit of perspective. Then again, if it's a good friend or a family member, they also know you. So the level of objectivity might also be a bit compromised, which is why the total stranger aspect is more helpful, because they will not make any excuses for you and they will tell you exactly what they think. Another downside that I have already mentioned, things can get a bit far and you can re-traumatize yourself if it is like a thing of like big magnitude. And being careful is always advised. So knowing how far you can go and when to stop is very essential, because you don't want to get to a place where you make things worse. And so with everything, do it carefully and make sure that you have some kind of support system for emergencies. Like if things go totally south, at least have a friend or someone that you can call, even if it is just to calm you down or something. And doing this completely alone might not be the best thing. I am in a fortunate position where I have friends that I can talk to this about and run those ideas by. And one of my friends, he has also been in therapy for quite some time now, and he has, like, from his own therapy, all those mechanisms and the things that he did with his therapist. So he will hold the mirror to my face and he will be like, hey, don't sugarcoat this. What do you see? Why is it that way? And he will ask me the tough questions, and that's a good thing. But with everything, like I said, tarot is not a substitute for professional and medical help. So if you have a therapist, if you have a doctor, someone that can help you, yeah, use them. And you can always use tarot on the side as well. It's just, in my case, this was the only thing that helped me after trying to get professional help, which didn't help me. So this was my personal experience. And I'm glad that I had this available, that tarot is a part of my life, that even astrology helped me, like analyzing my real sky astrology, going through my chart planet by planet, house by house, and all those aspects, put so many things in perspective of my own behavior, why I do things, why I like certain things and don't like other things. Like, it's all there. Like we can say about astrology what we want, is it real, is it not, but it's the blueprint of me. It's all there. And all of this has helped me. So for me, this has been a very positive experience, and I would always recommend it. And we're a little bit over the hour now, I see. So yeah, anything else in chat? Nope. Okay. So yeah, the one final advice that I can give with this, and I've said this before, just be honest with yourself. on this whole journey, and you can get so much out of it. And when you do any of this, do it in your own time, at your own pace. Don't let anyone push you beyond your things, and just take care of yourself. I pray all who can benefit from hearing this find your video. Aw, I'm glad you got something out of it. Yeah. Okay, so this has been quite the heavy topic today, but I'm glad that I'm in a position now where I can, laugh again. I can smile. I'm happy. I'm doing things. I'm starting to be creative again, and I'm enjoying it. So, yeah, I can say for me, this really helped. Thank you very much, Tarot. And with that, I want to thank everyone who was here today and who participated in the conversation. And to everyone who's watching back, please leave me a comment if you have experienced anything similar, if you've ever used tarot for therapeutic reasons, and if that helped you. How did you like it? Would you recommend it? So leave me a comment. You're welcome. Thanks. And yeah, thank you for being here. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in my next video. Have a good weekend. Bye. Take care, everyone.